So my name's Ruth Hards. I'm Health Lead here at Active Surrey, and I'm really delighted today to be joined by Alistair Jack from Parkinson's UK and Max Segre from England Boxing. So we've got about 45 minutes in total for the webinar. We're going to cover 3 different areas. Alistair's first going to talk about how being physically active can help people live well with Parkinson's. And then Max is going to talk about a fantastic new initiative from England Boxing about how an inclusive form of boxing can benefit people living with Parkinson's and other neurological conditions. And then Alistair's going to talk a little bit more about local services in Surrey and their physical activity fund. And then I'll wrap up with a couple of bits from Active Surrey. And then we'll have some questions as well. So please do pop any questions in the chat as we go, and I'll monitor the chat. And a copy of the presentations and all of the links to the different websites and videos will also be sent out to you afterwards. And we'll also ask if you can just spend 1 or 2 minutes completing a quick survey at the end as well. So that'd be great. So we're looking forward to an interactive and interesting next 45 minutes. And I'll stop sharing the screen and I'll hand you over to Alistair. So thanks very much.
Right. So my name's Alistair. My job title's changed since we started planning this event. I was one of the senior area development managers with our England team. But as of this week, I'm the regional lead for London. We've gone through a bit of a restructure and we've moved into a kind of regional model. So I'm the regional lead for London as of Monday. But I'm still finishing off bits and pieces in Surrey and Sussex and Hampshire, which is where I used to work. So I'm going to do a very quick whistle stop, talk a little bit about Parkinson's. I'm going to do a bit about what it is, and for some of you, this will be stuff you already know, so apologies for that, but I'll make it very snappy. But it is just because there's often a lot of misunderstandings and myths about Parkinson's. And then I'll talk a little bit about exercise and why exercise and the right type of exercise is so vital in supporting people with Parkinson's. And then I'll hand over to Max, who can talk a bit more about boxing. So that's me, and you'll have these details. Ruth's got all the slides, so you'll have my contact details as well. And although I'm not doing the active work in Surrey that I used to do before, I'm very much still around, and I'm still following up on bits and pieces. So if you do have any questions after today, you can always still come to me, and that's absolutely fine. I work for Parkinson's UK, which is major charity that supports people affected by Parkinson's, and that's everyone affected by Parkinson's, including families, friends, partners across the UK. And our focus is very much about improving the lives of people affected by Parkinson's. So, like I said, many of you already may have a connection to Parkinson's or will know people. Parkinson's is a neurological condition. It's actually the fastest growing neurological condition in the world, and numbers are rising quite rapidly. Our latest estimate is that it affects over 150,000 people across the UK. We've just recently revised that, and we think within the next few years that'll probably be up over 170,000. And actually, if you add in all the family and friend and colleagues and partners of people affected by Parkinson's, you're probably talking about 1 million people across the UK. So really, there's a lot of people affected by it and quite a rise in numbers. We think that's probably partly to do with hopefully better diagnosis and better awareness about Parkinson's. But also Parkinson's is a condition that's associated with age, and we do have an aging population. So we are going to see more people living with Parkinson's. It's not exclusively to do with age, though. You will meet many people who are younger as well. We don't know what causes Parkinson's, and we don't have a cure. So there's an awful lot of unknowns about Parkinson's. We do know why people, what causes it, which is that part of the brain that produces a chemical called dopamine, the cells in that part of the brain begin to die off. And actually we estimate that by the time the symptoms have become obvious, probably 60 to 80% of those cells have already died. Dopamine does all sorts of things, but it's one of its main sort of functions is to do with regulation of movement. So that's why a lot of the symptoms to do with Parkinson's are motor symptoms. But I'll talk a little bit more about the symptoms in a sec. All the research suggests that the reason the cells begin to die For the vast majority of people, we're not entirely sure. There are a small number where it is hereditary, but that's probably less than 5% of people. And again, in a very few cases, there are some environmental factors that go on, particularly things like exposure to certain chemicals, maybe pesticides or fertilizers. But for the vast majority of people, it's what we call idiopathic Parkinson's, and we don't know why it triggers for them. For the majority of people, the symptoms are things like slowness and poverty of movement. That would tend to be how it was diagnosed. So people tend to talk about being stiff, that their movements become smaller. People may shuffle more, they might have problems with limbs becoming quite rigid. The thing that if you ask people about Parkinson's, if you ask the public, the thing they'll always go is, oh yeah, that's that thing where people have a tremor and they shake a bit. And certainly a lot of people with Parkinson's do have a tremor, but lots of people also don't have a tremor. So it's very individual. The tremor's a resting tremor, so it tends to be when people are occupied. It tends to be less pronounced. And there's loads of other things as well. Parkinson's actually has certainly over 40 different symptoms. And some of those are physical and some are emotional or sort of mental as well. So these are just some of the symptoms, and you can see, shaking, falls, stiffness, rigidity. Fatigue and tiredness is really common. So there are a lot of the really common symptoms that people would experience. Freezing, where people's feet my friend has Parkinson's and she'll talk about her feet becoming stuck to the floor and she just isn't able to move for a few minutes, and she has various techniques she's learned to break that. Speech and swallowing can be a real problem because muscles become weaker. People's speech can become very soft or slurred. People may have trouble swallowing. And then there's all the kind of non-motor skills, so things like anxiety and depression, sleep disorders, memory problems, because dopamine does a whole load of different jobs. And also, the anxiety and depression, people are physically more likely to be experiencing anxiety and depression because dopamine is associated with moods and mood regulation. But actually being given a diagnosis like Parkinson's, understandably, people are also going to be experiencing that. And to add to this real mix of symptoms, the combination of drugs and medication that people take is complicated and individual as well. And that comes with a whole host of other side effects. So it becomes very complicated in trying to work out the particular range of symptoms that people are presenting with. And I think one thing I'd always say for any of you who are working with groups, exercise classes or activities with people with Parkinson's is everybody's so different. You could have 20 people in the room with Parkinson's and they would all have a different story about how they first realised they had Parkinson's, how the condition progressed, the type of medication that they take, how it affects them through the day. So no two people with Parkinson's are the same, and it's a very individual condition. It also has a real on-off period. So people will, if their medication is managing it well, they may manage quite well, but as the medication begins to wear off, the symptoms might become more pronounced quite quickly. So getting that medication right is really important. And that's really one of the main ways that the symptoms of Parkinson's are treated. We don't have a cure for Parkinson's, so it is about managing the symptoms as the condition progresses. And I've listed the main things we do. So medication is absolutely vital, but like I said, just as the symptoms of Parkinson's are really individual and unique, so is the combination of drugs. Whenever I go and meet a group of people with Parkinson's at a branch or a cafe, often the hot topic of conversation is like, which tablets are you taking, and how did you find that tablet affected you? Everybody has a different combination. The times they take them, the way it affects their symptoms is really individual. So we treat with medication. And of course, that needs to be constantly reviewed. Across Surrey, there are some really expert Parkinson's specialist nurses. And usually people would be referred on to their Parkinson's nurse, and the nurses are excellent at helping manage that medication to enable people to sort of live their most independent and best life they can. And that often needs quite a lot of tweaking and balancing. Therapies are really important. speech and language is really key. I mentioned people's speech becoming soft, swallowing problems. So there's a lot of exercises that speech and language therapists will do around voice projection, around breathing and speech. And OTs and physios are really important, and physios particularly in terms of exercise. People do occasionally, there are some surgical procedures that can be done. There's a thing called deep brain stimulation, which you may come across people talking about. And that's, for certain people, is really beneficial. So where some people have a very pronounced tremor, deep brain stimulation effectively runs a wire into the brain, and people have a pack under the skin, and they can turn that on and off. And when it's turned on for in the right sort of circumstances, it can really help reduce the tremor. But obviously, it's very intrusive major surgery, and it's not for everybody. So there's a whole load of criteria that people have to jump through in order to qualify for DBS surgery. The one at the bottom, and the reason that we're working with active surgery, is about exercise. Of all the things you can do with Parkinson's, exercise is far and away the most important. All the research suggests that it's as important as medication in terms of managing people's symptoms and helping reduce the impact of Parkinson's. It won't stop it, and it won't cure it, but it can really help people manage. And I suppose it's like most conditions, really. If you go to your doctor with anything, ingrown toenail, you name it, the first thing they'll probably tell you is lose some weight and do some exercise. And actually, exercise, being fitter, being stronger, will help people manage the symptoms and manage them well. But there is also a lot of research about the impact of exercise on the brain. So because a lot of the symptoms of Parkinson's are related to these, the neural pathways that dopamine would use to send signals to different parts of the body, relearning exercises, doing activities, the theories around neuroplasticity, so it will help the brain kind of relearn some of those neural pathways. And actually it can enable people to do stuff that maybe they were losing the ability to. So I spend a lot of time talking to people about exercise, working with providers, working with groups, doing Parkinson's awareness training. And I think for us, the message we would always give to people with Parkinson's is, or people working with people with Parkinson's, and the people with Parkinson's themselves, doing exercise. I'm actually not meant to say exercise because it frightens people off, terrifies me. But being more active, doing more, if you can do intense exercise, that's really good. And in fact, the research suggests that particularly in the early stages of Parkinson's, really intense aerobic exercise is the most effective. What often happens, I think, is that both for the person with Parkinson's and for trainers and professionals working with them, there's a tendency to go, oh, well, I've got Parkinson's, better ease up and take it easy now. Better give up five-a-side football, I better stop doing running or golf or whatever your sport is. Actually, the opposite is true. The research is that if you can do really intense exercise, particularly at the early stages, that will have a really significant impact on the symptoms. Of course, with Parkinson's, it's a progressive condition, so not everybody will be able to do that. So it's about doing the exercise that's most appropriate for the person at the stage they're at, and that will need to be adapted as their Parkinson's progresses. So you may need to move from an aerobics class to something slightly gentler, perhaps to something that's chair-based if people are having balance problems. But it's always pushing as much as we can. And certainly some of the exercise classes, because I help set stuff up, they always make me join in when I go along. And I always say to people, I've danced more in the last 8 years with Parkinson's than my entire life, because the dance classes always make me join in, and I hate dancing. But really intense dance workouts, there's a thing called PD Warrior, which is a physio-led exercise program specifically aimed at Parkinson's. They're all really intense and really hard work, but that's the level that we want to push people to if it's safe and they're able to do that. But it will need to adapt over time. So yeah, the message from us is being active, doing more, will really help people's physical well-being. It'll give them the strength. It'll help relearn some of those neural pathways. Emotionally, for people's emotional well-being, it's also a really positive thing for people to be doing. Especially, you know, a lot of our groups and branches run group exercise, and we know there's a lot of research about exercising in groups and how supportive that can be. So it does a lot for people's kind of emotional well-being as well. I'm going to hand over to Max now, and I will come back at the end just to talk a little bit about what else we do as a charity.
Fantastic, thank you. So yeah, Alistair's explained sort of the condition extremely well, and how it can affect people and sort of the best ways to go about it. As Alistair mentioned, there is no cure for it at the minute. Exercise does seem to be one of the best ways to slow down the sort of progression of the condition. So just briefly, and I won't go into too much detail, which is why it's been kept quite short, as Alistair has explained it very well. But essentially, it's a brain disorder with unintended and uncontrollable movements. This is often seen by shaking stiffness and difficulty with balance and coordination, which can affect people's postures and walking gait, which we tend to identify with Parkinson's. But it should be made clear that there are many more symptoms, some that you will observe, some that you won't. As Alistair said, people with Parkinson's are on and off. So some days they might walk into your sessions perfectly fine. You might even question, if you weren't aware that they had Parkinson's, you probably wouldn't be able to notice. And other times you look at them and it would be quite clear that they do have Parkinson's disease. So as Alistair mentioned, the symptoms gradually worsen over time. However, it has been found that this can be slowed down through regular exercise, which we hope to promote and encourage. Boxing training really is really beneficial for it because it consists of movements that require the use of the whole body, as well as continuous use of cognitive functions. So constantly using your brain to think about combinations that you're throwing, having to remember combinations, but also ensuring that you're able to hit the right targets at the right time. This is playing with sound on mine. I don't know if it's playing with sound. Could you hear that or no? No, okay, no worries.
Go to the next one. What we'll do is we'll send it out to everybody.
Yeah, brilliant. This is also a clip that was taken from the BBC News, who published it. It is one of my colleagues who runs his own boxing club, Newquay Boxing Club. And he was one of the first to set up a Parkinson's boxing session at his boxing club that he runs. The Parkinson sessions is called the Parky Blinders. So if anyone wants to have a little look, you can search that up on Google. I think it's a great name. Essentially, it's a 2-minute video clip on YouTube that was done by the BBC, which interviews one of the participants. You also get to see little clips of the session, and it also speaks to the coaches about the benefits and the impact that the boxing sessions have had on their participants. So that's a really good one to watch. So yeah, I'll get that. I think Ruth has received it, so she'll get that sent over. But again, if you were to search sort of Parkinson's boxing sessions on YouTube, this would be one of the first to come up. I do have another video which I'll show. So this one here is from a boxing club called West Kingsdown Boxing Club. It is a club within my region that I work quite closely with, and they have been delivering their Parkinson sessions for about 2 years now. I've been to visit it a couple of times, and the benefits to the participants is really incredible. I'll show you a little bit about what they do first, and then I'll talk you through what is happening within the session. Again, apologies, there's no sound on this video, but I will be able to send this out to you guys to be able to see it a bit more. Oh yeah, so apologies for the lack of sound there. So that was a short clip which would show a bit of a summary of what goes on in a Parkinson's boxing session. And the reason why I put that in is because I think boxing has sort of got quite a bad reputation for being a violent or aggressive sport. But really, these sessions are very much tailored to people that have this condition. So a couple of interesting things to note from these sessions is, first of all sessions are non-contact. They are delivered by trained boxing coaches who have also attended Parkinson's UK workshops to be able to tailor the sessions adequately to make sure that the sort of exercise is safe for them to do and at an appropriate level. I'll come into more detail in that towards the end of my slides, but I just wanted to cover a little bit about the sort of number of people involved in this sport at the moment. So, like I said, it's been quite a new thing. Parkinson's boxing sessions have only really been happening with our organisation for the last couple of years. And it has grown quite a lot. We started off with one club in the Western Counties. We are now at 15 clubs. There are a total of 97 participants across the country, with I think it's quite a good split of male to female, although this probably isn't accurate in terms of the ratio of people that have Parkinson's. We would still like to see more female participants coming along to the sessions, but we do have higher ratios within the Parkinson's boxing sessions than we do have in sort of our general classes. The age range is quite varied. As Alistair mentioned, it does increase the likelihood of suffering from Parkinson's the older you get. But we are aware that there are people sort of in their 20s that do have early onset Parkinson's. So really, these sessions are tailored to all ages. The typical age range that we have, or the current age range that we have, is 43 to 79 across our sessions. It really does vary. I'm aware of some boxing clubs that have 3 or 4 participants, and others, like you saw at West Kingsdown, which was the previous video. They average about 15 participants at each of their sessions. What are the benefits? I've spoken to the coaches in preparation for this, the coaches that deliver these sessions, and they've come up with some sort of key benefits that they've seen within their members, which are also in line with the research that's out there. So some of the main ones are, and the most obvious ones, I suppose, are the physical ones. So improved coordination, improved strength, balance, and agility is done from the constant movement within boxing, having to stay in your correct stance. So it really is beneficial for that. We also have a stronger core, which will improve their posture and walking gait, which are 2 things that tend to deteriorate once having Parkinson's disease. And we also see reduced tremors, shaking, and stiffness, which has been really beneficial. I mean, the sessions that I've been to, I remember speaking to one gentleman called Colin, who, when he first joined West Kingsdown Boxing Club about a year ago, he was really nervous about taking part. It was actually his wife that recommended him going because he was having really bad tremors. And so she recommended it to him. And when he first went, he really struggled to lift his arms up. His hands were constantly by his sides. He really struggled to maintain a boxing stance. And now, a year on, it is really impressive to see the difference in him. He's now able to keep both hands up. He was a gentleman in the black t-shirt towards the end of the video. So if you get a chance to have a look at it again, go and have a little look, because without sort of seeing what they were like before, it gets quite difficult to see the true benefits. But he's gone from someone who couldn't really keep their hands up to now being able to stand in his boxing stance with his hands up, being able to throw accurate punches at the target, and does it quite comfortably, and they are able to do it throughout the session. In terms of psychological, as I mentioned, improved confidence and self-esteem, that's been a huge one. It's been one that all participants have really wanted to come and tell me about. They all thoroughly enjoy the boxing sessions. We also see neuroplasticity improvements, which help to regain and maintain motor skills. As Alistair mentioned, Parkinson's, the disease can damage cells in the brain, and so being able to sort of regain or maintain any that have been lost or regained is really beneficial. And in turn, it improves cognitive processing, making everyone more efficient in terms of their reaction and day-to-day life skills and behavior, really. The social side has been arguably the most important, and it's been really interesting to hear, because when I first heard of sort of people with Parkinson's taking part in boxing, I just envisioned sort of past boxers that have Parkinson's disease and are now sort of quite stationary and not very mobile at all. And it was always a concern that one, they wouldn't be able to take part in the sessions, and two, the thought that maybe they feel quite isolated from the rest of society, being people who would have been mobile and quite fit and healthy throughout their lives, to now really being all of this reducing over time, which must be quite stressful. So there's been a real sense of belonging, not just to the club, but also to the community. A lot of these boxing clubs are actually running it with a practical session to start off with. They do about 45 minutes to an hour of training. And then one of the most important components is the hour follow-up. So the sessions tend to consist of 2 hours. The first hour is the practical part. The second hour is a social aspect where they have teas and coffees. And this tends to be donated by local charities. And that's where the community side of things feel it's really nice for them to have external people outside of their lives to be able to come in, sit down with them, have a chat about how their week's been. And that to them has been really beneficial and really enjoyable. And that's definitely an aspect that has kept them coming back to the boxing sessions. And once again, it helps them to connect with others in the same situation as themselves. A lot of people with Parkinson's are quite isolated. I mean, Parkinson's UK do a great job in trying to prevent this and having environments where they can come together and meet people with the same condition. And we find that these boxing clubs are a great way to do this. People don't feel alone. They're able to talk about their own experiences and things that they've done, methods that they've tried to be able to improve their condition, which has been really beneficial. There's some things to think about. Things to consider both for coaches and participants, because you really do have to be careful when working with anyone with a specific condition. We run various disability sessions across England. We have wheelchair boxing, Parkinson's boxing. I've seen boxing for people who have visual impairments, and each one has their own sort of considerations to think about. So here's a few things for anyone that is looking to deliver boxing for people with Parkinson's, or in fact any other sports, because I truly believe if boxing can be tailored to people with Parkinson's, I think it can be the same across many other sports. You just have to have a bit of a think about what is the safest way and the most appropriate way to deliver your sessions. So first of all, funding for sessions is crucial. And the reason why I say that is because the sessions themselves aren't particularly expensive. You have to pay for coaching costs and kit. However, you want to ensure that there is no barrier to participation. So West Kingsdown, when they first set up Parkinson's UK, actually funded them for the first year. When the funding ran out, there was no one else to actually take up the funding offer. As a result, members then had to pay. West Kingsdown very kindly only charge, I think it works out to £2 a session. They do a monthly subscription, works out to £2 a session. But £2 at retirement age sometimes can seem quite daunting, quite stressful. So funding is definitely something to think about, especially if you want numbers at the beginning of sort of the program. It will pick up over time, but yeah, funding is definitely something to think about. Having enough volunteers and coaches to spend time with each member will be crucial. There's been some sessions at some clubs. I know Coast to Coast originally only had one boxing coach in their club. And what he found was it's not as enjoyable for the participants, because the bit that they enjoy the most is learning the technique, learning a new skill, learning a new sport. So being able to have that coach-participant interaction where they are learning as they go along, it's not just a case of coming up and moving around. You will genuinely learn some boxing technique with it. So ensuring that there are enough coaches and volunteers is really good for the participants to feel part of the club and feel welcome. Another key part is the warm-up and cool-down. And I imagine Alistair will know a bit more about this than I will, but the warm-up and cool-down has been found to be vital for the sessions to have the desired effect. As mentioned, depending on whether the participants are on or off of their Parkinson's on that day, if they haven't had a correct warm-up, it will really limit their mobility, their range of movement, their coordination. And so ensuring that there is a warm-up that not only gets the body moving, but also gets the brain stimulating is really important. And again, having a cool down, I mean, that's important for any exercise, but particularly when working with people who have a lack of mobility. As mentioned, the social aspect is just as important as the physical component. That was something that I wasn't completely aware of until I started working with these clubs directly. I always expected it to just be a physical component, but from attending the sessions myself, I know that the members do really enjoy the sort of teas, coffees and biscuits after. The time and frequency of sessions to ensure maximal attendance are definitely crucial. I know West Kingsdown now run 2 sessions a week just to make sure that anyone who has hospital appointments, doctor's appointments, anything like that can guarantee to attend 1 session a week. It also has been made clear that sessions in the morning tend to work better than the sessions in the afternoon. In the afternoon, they tend to be a little bit more fatigued, which in turn causes a reduced sort of mobility again within the participants. So sessions delivered in the mornings, ideally a couple of times a week to ensure all participants can attend, seems to be the perfect model for delivering Parkinson's boxing sessions. The participants then, particularly for those who have never stepped foot into a boxing gym before, the environment must feel very welcoming. And the reason I say that is because to anyone, I was someone who walked into a boxing gym at 12 years old and I'm now 24 and I've never left, but I've seen many people come into a boxing gym who have felt very nervous about coming into a gym. It is quite regimental, I feel like, with many coaches being quite old school. And I think that can be quite intimidating for a lot of people. So ensuring that it is a welcoming environment, making sure that the gym is only being used for those Parkinson sessions, not having sort of a separate boxing session being run within the facility. That's been sort of seen to hinder the attendances at Parkinson sessions. Participants will also tend to have a lack of confidence when first attending, and this has been seen throughout. I mean, they feel very embarrassed, the fact that they aren't as mobile as they once were, aren't as capable as they were in their day-to-day tasks. And so really having that coach to boxer relationship to be able to work with them and speak to them about their condition and what's brought them here is very important. And I suppose that comes in making them feel confident, making them feel welcome, by making them feel welcome in time. It should improve their confidence. And of course, if you've got a coach that has taught the technique correctly, and each participant is feeling like they're learning week on week and is improving and their conditions improving, of course, that will improve their confidence as time goes by. And again, as Alistair mentioned, a fantastic point. Each participant's condition will affect them differently. 2 people that have Parkinson's will have completely different sort of skill sets in terms of what they can do within a boxing session. So you'll see in their warm-up, some of them are getting really involved and are able to throw their punches at a really high pace, whether that be in front of them, above their head, down below. Others are taking it a little bit slower. Some you may find will have more movement in their left arm than their right arm, depending on what they do around the house. Some might use one arm more than the other, in which case we need to think about that in terms of tailoring their sessions. So for people wanting to deliver some form of Parkinson sessions, and I need to make it clear, I've attended boxing Parkinson sessions. I haven't attended Parkinson sessions in other sports, but from speaking to the coaches that do deliver these sessions, they have no real reason why these sessions cannot be tailored to any other sport. If it can be tailored to a contact sport such as boxing, I'm sure that it can be adjusted across various other sports. So what would be needed to set something up like this? So in the essential qualifications, I've put down what England Boxing request. So we request a boxing coaching qualification to start off with. We have various coaching qualifications at England Boxing. They tend to be 4-day qualifications are the smallest that we do. However, we are launching a new boxing course at the end of this month, which will go live on the England Boxing website. So we will be able to take bookings soon, called the Boxing Activator course. The Boxing Activator course is a 5-hour coaching course. So it's a 1-day. It's priced at £50 per person, or there is a charge for a block booking, which is £1,000. So if there were sort of a local council or a school or leisure centre interested in taking several coaches, you can put 16 people onto a course at £1,000. There is a kickback that comes with that. But essentially the Boxing Activator course has been designed to teach people from a non-boxing background how to coach boxing within their desired environments. So we've realized that part of the reason we have a lack of participation in boxing is because boxing isn't particularly easily accessible. Sports like football, basketball, you see them delivered as after school clubs, you see them delivered in PE lessons, you see them delivered in summer sports camps. Boxing isn't one that is sort of delivered in these settings. So this coaching course really is aimed at teachers, sports centre staff, personal trainers, multi-sports coaches, anyone in that sort of field. The idea being is they'll be able to teach the basics of boxing with a load of integrated games and skill card games, which really will develop someone who hasn't taken part in the sport before into learning the basics of the sport. So that's sort of an ideal qualification that would work with something like the Parkinson's boxing sessions. We also ask people to attend the 2-hour Parkinson's UK workshop, which I believe Alistair will be able to share a link for. If not, I'll also have a link. I haven't embedded the links in here, but I'll make sure I add these in and get the slides sent back over to Ruth with the links embedded. So those are the main ones. Now, the 2-hour Parkinson's UK workshop, if you were to deliver it for another sport, I'm not sure if the national governing body would say that that is an essential qualification, but I would highly recommend it. I don't think that anyone should go into working with a specific group that has a condition without having attended some sort of course or workshop that explains how to work with that particular group, because there is a lot to it. Also, we ask for a first aid qualification. We ask that from all our coaches. And then, of course, suitable insurance. Anyone that coaches out there will have public liability insurance. So ensuring that your insurance policy does also cover working with people that suffer from Parkinson's disease, because, of course, there will be an increased risk of injury there. Desired qualifications and experience. I always, particularly when working with clubs in my region, I will always ask them to attend the Parkinson's boxing sessions first before setting their own up. I ask them to attend two. I asked them to attend 3, actually. The first one is to just go and observe. The second one is to assist with the delivery and also take participants on pads and teach them the technique on bags. And then the third is where they will sort of deliver it themselves with the support of the coaches who are already delivering those sessions. So that is what I would recommend across any sport. And then lastly, I just think it's very good practice to gain a solid understanding of Parkinson's disease. So finding out the effects it has on people, the limitations, the benefits of exercise, and how suitable it is. The suitable physical activity in it. So it would be ridiculous to take someone on pads and have them throw in 10 punch combinations. So how can we tailor this? Well, we can start off by just throwing 1 shot at a time, 2 shots at a time. As we progress this, then we can build that up. Lastly, there's my details on there. I'll also pass them on to Ruth so that Ruth has them. But feel free to drop me an email, drop me a call or a text if you have any questions. I would be more than happy to hook anyone up with coaches who are already delivering Parkinson sessions. If you would like to go and observe a session, I'm sure the teams that already deliver them would be more than happy to have you there. And really, it would just be great to have more on offer for people who do have Parkinson's disease and live with it, because I feel like there isn't as much out there as what could be. And we hope that more people will be involved in the Parkinson's boxing sessions, but also across other sports. It would be great to see. So is it on my end. I'll get all of this sent over to Ruth, like I said, so that she can share that with the rest of you guys. But yeah, feel free to drop me an email or call or text, and I'll be more than happy to discuss in more detail.
Thanks so much, Max. From talking to Max, we met a little while ago and we started talking about boxing and the different kind of environments in which it can be delivered. And I just got really excited here thinking about taking the concept of boxing outside of a boxing gym and into the community spaces and leisure settings in which many of you are working. So hopefully this is a really great opportunity to increase and improve accessibility of boxing, and also to encourage different people into your environments as well. I know I had a conversation with someone on the call around, wouldn't it be great to get more men into community centres? And actually, I think when you look at the demographic of who's attending these Parkinson sessions, I think this could be a really brilliant opportunity to do so. So I really hope this is something that we can explore further and get set up in Surrey, and for a cost of essentially £50 for the 5-hour training that England Boxing are starting, and the 2-hour top-up course from Parkinson's UK is free. So hopefully it's something that we can get set up and piloted in Surrey.
Absolutely. Max's explanation of boxing and how important boxing is. I've been to the club that you mentioned in Kent, and I've been to a couple in Surrey and Hampshire as well, or Sussex and Hampshire rather, and the benefits people get from doing it are absolutely huge. You can just feel the buzz in the room when people are doing it as well. So absolutely, any exercise is great, but we know boxing is particularly dynamic and brings real benefits. Max mentioned our physical activity course, so there's some information here, and Ruth will be able to send this all out to you. It's a course we developed that's aimed at anybody delivering any kind of exercise, so leisure centre staff, dance teachers, physios, trainers, you name it, as a general introduction. It's free, it's self-directed, so you can log on at any time and work through it and do it in your own time, but it's a really good starter in working with people affected by Parkinson's. We also have a grant scheme to support people providing physical activities. It's actually, the current window for applications is closing at the end of this month. They've had a really good response this year, but this year we've been providing grants of up to £3,000 to support new physical activity. So it needs to be for something that's new. What we haven't been able to do is maybe just keep the funding going for an existing activity. But if you're adding something new, starting a new class, or you need new bits of equipment to extend the range of what you're doing, come and talk to us about the grant scheme. Although it closes at the end of this month, I know it will be reopening. I'm sure it will be reopening in the spring, which is what happened last year. So if you've got the seeds of an idea and you want a bit of time to think about it, that's perfect, because you can always come and talk to us, help shape that idea, and get it ready to go. And in terms of what we can provide, so the role I was doing as area development managers, they're really key in promoting local activity. They can help you with advice and information, particularly things if you're writing a grant application for us or for someone else, and you need some information, some statistics, things like that, come and talk to us. We can advise about where there's a need. So one of the jobs we do is try and map activity, so we can identify where there are gaps. So if there's an area that we know already has several activities going on, we might be able to suggest a better location. We can certainly help promote amongst the Parkinson's community. And as I said, help around funding. Parkinson's UK have a network of local groups and branches. I think there may be somebody on the call from one of our groups. I saw on the guest list somebody was going to join from one of our branches. We've got over 350 groups around the UK. There's 5 across Surrey, plus some drop-in cafes. The branches are absolutely fantastic. They're run by volunteers. They provide a whole load of activities, a lot around exercise. And we can help connect you to them, because they're a really good way of meeting with the Parkinson's community, being able to find potential participants in your activities. But we also connect to people like the Parkinson's nurses and the other people in the Parkinson's community that don't come to a branch. So we can help spread the word. We can help with posters and promotion and helping you shape up your activity. That was my last little bit. Said I'd keep it short.
Brilliant, thanks, Alistair. Talk a little bit more just for a moment about funding. We do have a Living Longer Better physical activity funding support package as well. So if you did want to come and talk to us, maybe you needed more money than the £3,000, or your timescales didn't fit with the Parkinson's Physical Activity Fund, then please do give me a call or send me an email, because like I say, we'd really love to support you in setting up, whether it is boxing, or whether actually it might be any other form of physical activity session for someone suffering from Parkinson's, or any other long-term health condition as well. So please do bear that in mind, and like I say, we'd love to talk that through with you. I'll send you out a link which is in our professionals hub, which has a link through to our funding application form. And then I suppose just the last little thing is to say, we'd be very grateful if you haven't already, either use the QR code or the link here to send us your feedback, because like I say, we're very aware that your time is precious, so we really hope that this has been a valuable session. So thank you very much, and like I say, we're open to any questions that you have.